good evening, and welcome to Pipe Bomb Sports Show with your co-hosts Jimmy Dugan, Nelson Nellyville Sirocco, and Andrew the Monk Monaco. Tonight we got a couple guests for you tonight, a couple of special guests actually. We have Vinny Lasante and of New York own Anthony Donahue, host of the Knicks Blog Radio and the Knicks Blog Podcast, also a member of ESPN New York 98.7, and you can tune into him every Saturday morning with Bill Daughtry. First and foremost, we want to thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. I can't say enough. Thank you. You know, a great honor actually to have you on here. But tonight we have a great show. We're going to go into a little NBA talk. We're halfway through the season. So we got a New York Knicks fan, huge fan in the house. We're all New York Knicks fans. So
right now.
We'll talk about a little New York Knicks. We'll get into the NFL and the conference championships. One game away from the Super Bowl. And hopefully maybe we'll recap a little NCAA football with the Ohio State Buckeyes. But for tonight, first off, we're going to start the show with Anthony Donahue. We'd love to pick your brain, first off, on NBA, New York Knicks.
Right into it.
Of course, right into it. But we want to get a little background information on you. You know, like how did you start? You know, where did you come from? And, you know, how did you get into sports radio?
Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for having me on the show tonight. It's quite the honor to be on with a couple guys from the neighborhood, so that definitely means a lot. Thank you guys so much for reaching out for me and asking me to come on. That means a lot.
Pleasure.
Honor to have you. But yeah, I got a question, man. How did you become a Knicks fan?
How did I become a Knicks fan?
I know from New York, but I need to know how you became a Knicks fan.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Most people that become a diehard fan of their team or teams, it's because their mother or their father, aunt, uncle, brother, cousin rooted for that particular team.
Right.
With me, I grew up in a family that mostly loved hockey and rock and roll music.
Hockey and rock and roll?
Yeah.
Those two go together.
Not bad, but you know, I'm more of a hip-hop basketball guy.
Right.
So actually, the three teams I liked before the Knicks were the Yankees, the Giants, and the Rangers. And to be honest, it was the playoffs in 1993. The Knicks were playing the Pacers in the first round. I knew I liked the Knicks, but I didn't know I loved the Knicks yet. And like I said, the Knicks weren't thrown on me. And I had been living in Walton now for a year, which is about 3 hours away where I grew up. Well, the star center of the Indiana Pacers, Rick Smits, lived in Walton over the summer. So when the playoffs would happen, the whole town of Walton would turn yellow. And everybody in this little town in upstate New York would be rooting for the Pacers. Like I said, I knew I liked the Knicks, but I didn't know I loved the Knicks. And I watched the Knicks play the Pacers in the first round of the 1993 playoffs, which the Knicks won. And John Starks headbutted Reggie Miller, and Patrick Ewing wanted to throw him, through the roof. But something came over me. And I went from a casual Knicks fan in fourth grade to the biggest Knicks fan in the world. And it just took over my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, took over my life, man.
You know,
a lot of joy, much more heartbreak, but a lot of joy as well. I haven't seen a championship. The Knicks haven't won a championship since 1973. It's been 42 years, but I've had a ton of great memories. Not a lot over the last 15 years.
Yeah.
But from like 1993 to 2000, whether it was, getting to the conference finals in 1993, getting to the finals in 94, winning 57 games in 1997 was fun. Getting to the finals in 1999 was awesome. Beating the Heat in the 2000 second round was great. Beating the Heat in 1998 in the first round was awesome. The 4-point play Allen Houston shot, that was great. So I've had a lot of awesome moments. My main thing I want the most as a fan is winning a championship, and then hopefully at some point I'll get that.
Yeah, hopefully we all get that as Knicks fans.
Of course.
We've been praying. We have time. We're not forced anything as the season's going on. We're 5 wins right now, doing bad. But I gotta ask you, who's your favorite Knick of all time?
There's a few that I love. My all-time favorite Knick by far is Patrick Ewing. He's number one. But the guy who I idolize the most is John Starks. Especially if you watch me play basketball, I'm a shooter. I pounded my chest all the time growing up.
A little bit of a hothead.
Yeah, a little bit. So, but my favorite player of all time is Patrick Ewing. Then my idol is John Starks, but not too far behind is Latrell Sprewell, Larry Johnson, Allen Houston. So
I was gonna say, you got Allen Houston fan?
Oh, I love Allen Houston. Love Allen, LJ, Sprewell. Chris Childs, Charlie Ward, Derek Harper, all those guys have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, even Houston with his lucrative contract. I was like, you know what?
That wasn't Allen's fault.
Okay.
That wasn't Allen's fault. They offered, the Knicks bid against themselves, but they offered him a $100 million contract. Nobody in their right mind is going to turn that down.
No, absolutely not.
I don't think anyone in this room would turn that down.
Yeah.
No way. Exactly.
So you're a Knicks ticket holder, right?
Season tickets, yeah. I've had season tickets now for 10 years.
Wow.
I've basically been at almost every Knick game since I was 17 years old, and I moved back to the city after growing up upstate. So I probably only missed 12 home games over the last 13, 14 years.
Wow. They got to get you on Celebrity Row at halftime.
They should.
Pretty sure. I'm going to have to pitch for that.
What would you say, out of those 10 years, your best Knick game you ever went to? Your favorite
The
Knick
last
game of all
10
time?
years? Well,
That's tough.
Well, there's been a lot of losing over the
Yeah.
last 10 years. Obviously, no matter what, I always love going to the Garden. But since you ask over the last 10 years, I'd say the best night was February 28th, which I guess now was 11 years ago. No, 12 years ago now. I'd say February 28th, 2003, when they retired Patrick Ewing's number.
Yeah.
That was awesome. But to be honest, I guess, over the last 10 years, so you're going back to 2005, there hasn't been a lot of great moments. I didn't really love them, but I guess Linsanity was fun. The 54-win season was fun, but there really wasn't any great moments. But if you want to ask me,
that's a shame.
The best Knick game I've been at over the last 10 years, though, that's easy. That's easy. No. If you ask me the last 10 years, I'm going to give you an answer.
Okay.
If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. The best Knick game I've been at over the last 10 years is by far Easter Sunday 2012. That was incredible. Carmelo Anthony hitting a 3 with 3-4 seconds left to tie the game, to send it into overtime versus the Chicago Bulls. And then in overtime with the Knicks down 2 with the same time, 3-4 seconds left, Carmelo Anthony holding the ball, hitting another 3 to win the game. So that was definitely the best game I've been at over the last 10 years. Of all time, the best Knick game I've been to personally that I've been at, 2. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the 4-point play at the Garden in June of 1999. But the 2 best Knick games I've been at were the first Knick playoff game I've ever been to, which was May 12th, 1999 versus the Miami Heat. The Garden was so electric. I never experienced anything like that night. Just because it was versus the Miami Heat, the team Knick fans hated the most.
Yeah.
I feel we hated the Heat more than we hated the Bulls,
Definitely.
more than we hated the Pacers. The Garden was so electric, and the Knicks won that game 97-73. Absolutely demolished the Heat that night. The entire Madison Square Garden, 19,763, chanting "Riley sucks."
Yeah.
It was incredible.
That's awesome.
And the second best Knick game I've been to was Game 2 of the 2000 playoffs in the first round versus the Toronto Raptors. The Knicks were down 16 in the fourth quarter. Latrell Sprewell led a monstrous comeback and hit the game-winning shot with the Knicks down 1 with 5 seconds left on Vince Carter. Spectacular moment, and those are probably the 2 best Knick games I've ever been at in person.
Riding on them Sprewells.
I remember some of those games too. Awesome games. I mean, nothing like the Garden. Nothing like seeing Magic in the Garden like that. And
nothing like that. I always tell this to people, especially younger fans. Obviously, none of us have experienced the Knick championship, but the fans that have never really experienced the Knicks being good, with the exception of a little bit of the 2010-2011 season, a little bit of Linsanity, and the 54-win season, as great as Yankee Stadium is when the Yankees are rocking, or when the Mets are playing well, Citi Field, Shea Stadium, when that was rocking, Giants and Jets, that's great. The Rangers is great. There's nothing like the Garden when the Knicks are relevant. The problem is, over the last 15 years, the Knicks haven't been relevant that much.
Yeah, and you're right. We haven't been relevant.
It truly is the world's greatest arena.
Truly is.
Seeing the Knicks, this is a dark age. You could say
it's been pretty dark. There's no doubt about that.
Knicks fans are so loyal.
They are.
They are. I just want to ask you. Say it's simple. Do you believe in Phil, or did he sell us a dream called the Triangle Offense?
I still believe in Phil. I'm not 100% sold on him. I never was. Even when they hired him, I wasn't jumping up and down like a lot of other fans
I gotta agree
have
with you
done.
on that.
But what I really want to give Phil a chance with, and he hasn't done a great job so far. The trades he made haven't been great. Giving up Tyson Chandler, getting Jose Calderon back. When he brought back Jose Calderon, he definitely thought Jose Calderon wasn't just going to be the point guard for this year. He looked at Jose Calderon as the point guard for the next few years when they go out and they hopefully get some nice free agents this summer. He thought Calderon could anchor that offense, could anchor the triangle offense. Giving up Tyson Chandler when he was in a contract year, when you could have traded, you could have waited. You knew he was going to play well, 1, because he was healthy, and 2, he was in a contract year. If both of those things happened, you could have gotten more for Tyson Chandler, even a first-round pick. You looked at what the Nuggets got for Timothy Mozgov, sending him to the Cleveland Cavaliers for 2 first-round picks. Had you held on to Tyson Chandler, you could have got that for him. Now, I know Phil Jackson wanted to cut...
1,000% right.
Absolutely, and I know Phil Jackson wanted to cut Raymond... I mean, he wanted to get rid of Raymond Felton. What Phil Jackson should have did was just cut Raymond Felton, ate the money, and got him off the team, just like the Detroit Pistons did with Josh Smith. The ultimate addition by subtraction. But what I want to see Phil Jackson do, and where I want to give him a chance, is in free agency. When Phil Jackson is sitting at the dinner table or the coffee spot or having a brewski with Marc Gasol, with Jimmy Butler, who was on my show last night on the KnicksBlog.com, with Rajon. No, I'm not saying I want Rondo, Paul Millsap.
Who would you want?
Any of these guys in free agency, I want to see what Phil Jackson can do when he's sitting in front of them and he has money to offer. I mean, the two guys I want the most by far are Marc Gasol and Jimmy Butler. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if you're asking me who I want the most, without a doubt, it's Marc Gasol and Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
And who would you settle for?
I mean,
settle.
See, I see the Knicks getting a second-tier type of free agent.
Yeah, so
Greg
do I.
Monroe.
Greg Monroe.
Yeah, I would settle. I would settle for a Greg Monroe and maybe a Wesley Matthews, Corey Joseph from the Spurs. Those would be some nice pickups as well, because it's not about getting the sexiest free agent this summer. It's about getting the right free agent, especially when you have a star player in Carmelo Anthony. I do believe he's a star player. He's not LeBron James. He's not Kobe Bryant in his prime. He's not Dwayne Wade in his prime. But you have to make sure you get the right players around Carmelo Anthony. And if you do, this team can win.
Yeah, yes, we can win. Carmelo is a big piece to it too. He's a big piece, I think, to the winning factor for the Knicks.
Now, another question, Ant.
Yeah.
Come the draft, what do you think we do come draft time? Who do you think we look at? Say we get the second pick, not the first pick.
Yeah.
Oh, you're probably
Okafor's off the board, because that's who I would love.
You're probably going to look point guard.
I would go. That's
especially because Calderon is probably not going to be here for the future.
No.
And I think
he's looking to shop him now. He's trying to shop him and Banyana.
And I think Phil Jackson thought Calderon could be a guy that could be the point guard for the next few years. So if the Knicks don't get the number one pick, you're probably going to be looking point guard.
Who would you? Do you have any options? Any ideas?
I know this kid Stein. He's supposed to be a good point guard, but I definitely got to do some more homework on the draft.
Yeah,
and I will.
A long ways away. Were you okay with the Shumpert J.R. Smith trade? I mean, were you sad to see Shumpert go just because of his defense? I mean, J.R., I feel like you're a J.R. Smith lover or a hater.
No,
I like J.R.
First of all, Iman Shumpert hasn't locked anybody down on defense since his rookie year. Let's get that straight right now. Iman Shumpert definitely has been since
the ACL.
He has been the same player since Game 1 versus the Heat in the 2012 playoffs when he got hurt in that game. But was I sad to see those two go? No, not at all. But what kind of bothered me was how little you got in return. I just think you could have did a little bit better. But a lot of Knick fans, Phil Jackson has brainwashed so many Knick fans, where a lot of Knick fans I saw on Twitter even said, well, only Phil Jackson could have gotten rid of J.R. Smith's contract. J.R. Smith wasn't making $20 million a year. He's making about $7-8 million a year. I think there was an abundance of teams that probably would have taken on J.R. Smith because at the end of the day, he's still a very talented basketball player. So I don't think it was the hardest thing in the world to dump J.R. Smith. I'm not sad about losing those two, but it would have been nice to have gotten more, maybe a first-round pick. Like I said, if the Denver Nuggets get 2 first-round picks for Timofey Mozgov, why couldn't you get 1 first-round pick for J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert? And in that deal, in the three-team deal with the Cleveland Cavaliers and Oklahoma City Thunder, the Cleveland Cavaliers still ended up with the first-round pick, and they gave up Dion Waiters, and they sent him to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So it would have been nice to have gotten more. And the crazier thing is, if you look at the Knicks, when you go back to a year and a half, 2 years ago, when they won 54 games, a lot of Knicks fans probably thought J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert were cornerstones or were going to be here for the next 5 years. And when the Knicks finally win that championship and have that ticker tape parade, a lot of fans probably thought Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith were going to be part of that, and that's not the case anymore.
I got to tell you, another player I've been very disappointed with, Tim Hardaway Jr. I want to say sophomore slump.
Well, I think the reason... See, I'm not that disappointed with him because I never thought he was that good to begin with. I think he's okay.
You told me that years ago.
I think Tim Hardaway Jr. is okay. I think he's a solid.
Good in Michigan with Trey Burke.
Yeah. I think he's a good 8th or 9th man. I think he could be in. I think he could have a nice 12 to 15 year NBA career.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be a top shooting guard, if you're thinking he's going to be an Allen Houston, that's not going to happen. Yeah. But could he have a nice career and be an 8th man on a good team? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a question for you now.
Yeah, what's up?
With Phil Jackson, obviously, I mean, right now we're saying we really don't agree with the trades. How long do you really give him,
August,
especially with this offseason coming up, which is not a lot of great stars, but there is some.
August 1st.
August 1st.
We'll really judge, because by then the draft will be over. For the most part, free agency will be over. The big names will probably have dropped, will have been signed to their new teams or current teams. August 1st. Maybe July 25th, but August 1st is the day we can really start to judge Phil Jackson. You can judge him now. Don't get me wrong. If you want to judge Phil Jackson, if you're against the Derek Fisher hire, I'm fine with that. If you're against the Jose Calderon trade, giving up Tyson Chandler, I'm fine with that. If you're against giving up Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith for nothing, I'm fine with that. But when we can really start judging Phil Jackson is August 1st.
What about, so we're talking about Phil, but when do we start judging Fisher?
Like,
when is he up? If rookie slump this and that, but you got to,
well,
when
now
the
you
teams
can't
are competing, this has to go on the coach.
Well, here's the thing on Fisher right now. Now, for the rest of the
Right.
season, you can't judge Fisher at all because
No.
he's
Yeah,
playing
there's no
with
one
a
there.
bunch of D-leaguers now.
Yeah.
And the losing streak, for all we know, might go to 35 games. To be honest, I hope the Knicks get a win soon because I don't want them to go on a 30-game losing streak, even though I want as many ping-pong balls as possible as a fan. But it would be nice if they got this losing streak off their backs at some point. I judged Fisher a lot the first month and a half, but at the same time, he was a rookie coach. He's still a rookie coach. The Knicks, I believe, have lost 21 games when they by 3 points or less this season.
Put that on the coach a little bit.
I
Yeah.
put that on Derek Fisher and Carmelo Anthony.
Yep.
And I'm a big Melo fan, and I know in basketball not one player can do it by himself, but when there's 2 minutes left in that game, and it's a close game, you're up 1, down 1, up 2, down 3, whatever it may be, that's where you say, forget the first 46 minutes, and that's where your star player and your coach needs to take you home in those last 2 minutes. Because when the Knicks first got Carmelo Anthony, they didn't just get him because he was a superstar. They got him because he was Mariano Rivera. He was a closer. He's a player who can win those games in those situations because before the Knicks got Carmelo Anthony, they were losing a lot of games on the stretch. I remember a lot of fans would call my show and say, if we just had Carmelo, if we just had a closer, we'd win these games. So, especially this season, 21 games, I believe it is, the Knicks have lost by 3 points or less. That's where Carmelo Anthony needs to rise above the rest and figure out a way to win those games. And this year, and over the last few years, to be honest, and I'm a big Carmelo Anthony fan, he has not done that.
No.
Yeah. You're right. He hasn't.
100%
I know in the past
right.
we've argued about Carmelo Anthony here on the show, saying that he's definitely one of the top players that you kind of want on your team.
Top 3 scorers in the league. Top
100%.
4.
Do you think
Along with Harden, Curry,
he can handle
Durant?
being that big guy and taking that big shot at the end of
I
the
think
game?
he can handle it because
Definitely.
he can handle it. The thing is, he has to knock it down. He doesn't get the pressure doesn't rattle
You have to
Carmelo
draw up the right
Anthony
play,
at all.
though, as well.
Right.
It's all
Yeah.
about the play drawing up.
Yeah, that too. The pressure doesn't rattle him at all. He can miss 10-game winners in a row, and he'll still take that 11th. That doesn't bother him at all.
No.
But you're right. He needs to
shouldn't rattle.
make those shots. He needs to take better shots in those situations.
And I think as a Knicks fan, too, down the stretch the last 2 minutes, we don't care if he takes almost every shot.
No, that's why
we
they
can
got
live
him.
and die with that.
That's why they got him.
Exactly. He's the Mariano. He's the closer.
And he
But-
hasn't done that. He
And he
hasn't done
hasn't.
that.
Carmelo Anthony stops the ball on offense, but he could score with the best of them.
Oh, he's one of the best players of all time.
Personally,
Yeah.
I think that Phil Jackson missed his guy. I think he had his guy in Steve Kerr.
Yep,
I think
exactly.
Steve Kerr assessed both rosters, and it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, and his family situation. He has, I believe, 3 kids.
Yeah, he's a
all
West Coast
going
guy.
to
He's a
school
West
in
Coast guy,
California.
yeah.
Right.
He would have been
Yes.
3,000 miles away from his
It's
family.
a no-brainer.
And in whether it was going to be a rebuilding situation or not as good situation as the Golden State Warriors.
Not
Bottom
even
line.
What job would you take there?
Yeah,
Come on.
not
We
even
would all
close.
Exactly.
take the Golden State job.
Exactly. And the Golden State Warriors right now have the
Are
best
best
record in the
team,
NBA
yeah.
and have a chance to win the championship.
Championship.
So, and let's assume that going into the offseason, we sign a Greg Monroe and a Goran Dragic.
That's pretty solid.
What would you give that a good grade?
Yeah, I would take that and have a good draft. Yeah, I would
Have a
definitely
good
sign
draft,
for
though.
that.
Yeah,
All
we
right,
have
so
to have a
then
good draft.
That's
that
good.
sounds reasonable.
When you put
to
players
me.
like that around Carmelo Anthony,
Right.
that's a good thing.
I agree.
That's a good thing.
Those are good second-tier free agents.
Exactly.
It is.
Exactly right.
Now, Ed, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Is Stoudemire coming back next year? or
Well, that's
he's
a good
gone?
question. And you
That's
know
a
what?
great question.
I wouldn't be shocked if he came back at a really cheap price. I think
Think he'll do
if
it?
the Knicks are cool with that. Now, because here's why. I don't think another team is going to blow Amari away with an offer because they know at any point his knee can go.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. And Amari likes being here. He likes being in New York. Apparently, he's some sort of artist and fashion designer as well. And I like Amari a lot.
I do.
But I wouldn't be
Sean
shocked
Avery.
if Amari Stoudemire came back to the Knicks at a very cheap price.
He came
I hope
when
he does
nobody
come
else
back.
wanted to come.
He started.
Exactly.
He started the whole movement.
Yeah,
and all that
exactly.
whole
That's
big.
why I-
free
that's
agent.
why I
did.
respect
He
him.
As a
did.
Knick fan, I know you got that respect.
No, I do.
That's exactly why I respect him.
Obviously,
Yeah.
when Amari
Exactly
Stoudemire put the hat on outside Madison Square Garden in
Awesome.
July of 2010
great.
and
Awesome.
said the Knicks are back, that was a huge moment for us
Yeah, it
as
was a
Knicks
cool
fans.
moment.
Everybody
Even
was
though-
going to Miami. He came
Right,
here.
exactly.
Right.
Even though there's no getting around the fact that the main reason he came here is because the Phoenix Suns offered him a 3-year contract.
Yeah,
and the Knicks
yeah,
offered
but
him
yeah,
a 5-year
understand
contract.
that.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that. But he was the first big free agent in about 15 years, 14 years to come to the Knicks since Allen Houston came in the summer of 1996.
Yeah.
Yes.
And absolutely. And, that was a big free agency, like Monk was saying. Like, LeBron was a free agent, Wade, Bosh, and Amari was like the first one to say,
Still a very good player in the league at that time.
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was,
And, he caught a lot of heat for punching the fire extinguisher in the players, but at least he showed heart. At least he showed emotion. He cared.
Definitely.
At least he showed he cared. And I will always respect that Amari. And
Definitely.
with the injuries he went through and stuff, I really do hope he comes back because he was the one that said, I want to be a Knick.
Right.
And I will always
That's
fight
why
for that, but I hope we can get him back at a cheap price, like you said, Ed. I really do. I really like Amari.
They're gonna have some money to play with. So.
Yeah, no, they are. I wouldn't be
have
shocked
money
if
to play
Amari
with.
came back at a small price. That wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah. But, and I got to ask you another question.
Yeah,
You've been a lifelong Knick fan for so long, but where did we go wrong to get to this point? Like, we're talking about Houston and the Ewing era
that's
and
easy.
LJ and Van Gundy
Isaiah
era
Thomas.
to- Blake Ball, Isaiah.
He was the
But
worst.
how are we here? We're talking about 5 wins. This is Knick basketball, the
James
mecca of
Dolan.
basketball, and we are here, and we shouldn't be here as Knick fans. We are, so elite in our franchise that we're just so low
Such
right
a big
now.
market.
So where do
New
we?
York.
How do
Second
did
biggest
you
market
ever
in
think we
LA.
would get to this point where we have 5-26? Like, did you ever think this was possible? Because as a Knick fan, I didn't think this was possible.
This
Watching
year?
us,
Look at your face.
Well, here's the thing.
no, I'm saying overall.
Overall,
how did we get
thinking
here?
back to the last 15 years?
I need an
And
answer.
when
Yeah,
you
I need
saw-
an answer. How did we get here?
When you saw Samuel Dallenberg on the roster, admit, you were like, all right, this is a throwaway year.
No,
This is a throwaway
I
year.
did think going into this season with the way they finished
We're
the
gonna be
season
bad.
last year.
Yeah.
No, I thought they were a playoff team.
Really?
Yeah.
I was with Dan.
With
Yeah,
the
I thought
East
we were
is weak.
as well.
with the East being
Yeah.
weak,
Yeah.
the East being wide open, the Knicks finished the season last year playing extremely good basketball. Amari played really well down the stretch. Melo came into camp apparently 15 pounds lighter, bringing in Calderon because the bottom line, he wasn't Raymond Felton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew they downgraded at center, bringing in Dallenberg and not having Tyson Chandler. Drafting Clay Anthony early. Hopefully another year of Tim Hardaway Jr. growing and maturing. I really thought J.R. Smith was going to have a big bounce back year. I thought
Nothing.
Iman Shumpert was going to step up, and he actually did the first few weeks of the season. So with all that being said, I thought the Knicks were a playoff team. They were not. They'll be lucky to win 10 games this year. As far as the last 14, 15 years of the Knicks hitting rock bottom, I mean, that goes back to the Ewing trade. Patrick Ewing had 1 year left on his contract in the summer of 2000. Had they just let him expire, the Knicks would not be in this position. Ewing asked for a trade. The Knicks accommodated him. The Knicks should have just talked him out of it, and I know they did because Jeff Van Gundy, who was on my show, who gave a riveting interview 3 months ago where he stayed on with me for 35 minutes talking about the history, his history coaching the Knicks, and we got into that trade, and Jeff Van Gundy, Dave Checketts, all tried to convince Patrick Ewing not to go, but Ewing was so emotional that summer, the Knicks ended up trading him. Now, the Knicks didn't have to trade him. He had 1 year left on his contract, and if the Knicks didn't trade him, he would have played that last year, and he wouldn't have been a problem. His contract would just came off the books, and the Knicks could have retooled. But what happened was they traded Patrick Ewing. They brought back Glenn Rice. Glenn Rice gave him a big contract, kept Glenn Rice for 1 year, traded him for Shandon Anderson and Howard Isley, who had big contracts, and that started a cycle of getting big contracts and bigger contracts and trading for players that had 4 years left in the deal, making $50 million. I could go over everyone, but I'm not going
That's how you put yourself in a hole.
They only got bigger as the years came
You put
along.
yourself in a hole.
Exactly, and the Knicks put themselves in a huge hole that Donnie Walsh got them out of.
Sure.
They didn't get the prize they wanted.
You're right.
When Donnie Walsh came here,
Donnie Walsh did do a really good
The
job.
summer of
Cleaned the house when he came
2010
here.
was the first time the Knicks had real cap space over the summer since the summer of 1996. And when the Knicks have cap space this summer, will only be the third time
I'm
in
excited.
the last 16 or 17
two of
years
us.
the Knicks have had real money to spend in the offseason. That was the summer of 1996 when they signed Allen Houston and Chris Childs and traded for Larry Johnson. The summer of 2010 when they signed Amari Stoudemire and Raymond Felton. And now this summer they will have a ton of cap space. So
Hope we do something better
that's a
than
very good thing. That's
Felton
why
and Amari.
that's really why I had no problem with the Knicks just getting rid of J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert, because getting rid of J.R. Smith opened up more
Money.
cap space.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, with the way the NBA and the collective bargaining agreement is structured, there is zero downside to more cap space.
Correct.
As I
Now,
was
do we
looking,
force the issue, though? Like, say we go have all this money, but the pieces that Phil wants aren't there. Do we have to force it to feed the
that-
fans what we want, but if the players are not there, what do we do? I mean,
You're
saying control bullet, but
you're gonna have to go to West 4th Street and pick up some players.
yeah. I mean,
you have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough.
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Like I seen, we have probably around $33 million in cap space this year.
Yep.
A lot.
Do you think that any players are going to return, like from the free agents that we're letting go this year? Obviously, do you want anyone to stay?
That's on the Knicks right now. Well, the Knicks have
Nobody.
4 players under contract for next year, and Carmelo Anthony, Tim Hardaway Jr., Clay Anthony Early, and Jose Calderon. So the 2 guys I expect back out of those 4 are Carmelo Anthony and Clay Anthony Early. I wouldn't be shocked if Tim Hardaway Jr. was
Thank
traded.
God, please.
And I hope they can get rid of Jose Calderon
So
because
do
he
I.
just
Going.
he
Yeah.
just makes me nauseous. Him and that pump fake at the 3-point
He's
line.
old.
And Bargnani. Get Bargnani
Well,
out of here,
Bargnani's
too.
contract
He's off the
expires.
books,
So
yeah,
I
so-
don't care if they trade him or not because he's going to be
Coming
gone at
off
the end of the year anyway. In
I don't
fact,
think anyone's going to
Bargnani might not even
take
be in
him.
the.
He hasn't done. What has he played? 2 games? this
Exactly. Well, no, he only played 1. He played in that 1 game in LA versus the Clippers, and he got hurt during that game. He hasn't played since. What a scrub! But the bottom line is Bargnani needs to worry about himself because he might be out of the NBA after this season.
Yeah, it's true.
He's a
Who's
high
gonna hire
user,
him? I mean, who's gonna
one's gonna
sign
take
that?
him.
You know, I gotta say this guy Phil Jackson. I think he sold us a dream called the triangle offense. I really
early.
do. I am.
You have to get the right players,
Derek
Andrew.
Fisher signing. It's it's good as a fan to
You
be
need a
excited
guard,
about
a
a 5
center,
and 35
and,
team.
and Carmelo
To be able to
work
look
the
forward
triangle.
to the offseason. I'm just not sold on this.
It's
I'm
gonna
not
take
sold
time.
on
You
Phil.
thought this was gonna, be fixed overnight? You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind.
You got to give him till this summer, and he'll
This
still
is
have,
bad.
he'll still have time after that. But he
Yeah.
did do a good job as he's cleared a lot of cap space.
See what he does with the money.
Nobody thought 2 years ago when the Knicks won 54 games and they were 2 games away from being in the conference finals. You thought going into the next year they were going to be in the conference finals, maybe the finals, and this year they were going to win that championship or
Yeah.
get really close. That's not how it happened. You got to give Phil Jackson credit for clearing the cap space. Listen, going into this year, Phil Jackson wasn't planning on rebuilding. He was planning on retooling. There's
Yes.
a difference between rebuilding and retooling.
Tooling.
And he thought Phil Jackson planned to retool.
Now
Well,
he has to
now,
rebuild.
especially with getting rid of Shumpert and JR, now he's officially
That's it.
rebuilding.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Definitely taking the season.
Definitions, rebuild and retool, right there.
Now-
But yeah, I think you're right though. I think we thought when we lost Indiana that we were just going to take that next step.
Yeah,
in the
that's usually
playoffs.
what happens.
And we just went,
Every Knick fan thought that.
we
down.
thought we
happened.
That's usually what happens.
we got
with a lot of
exploited in
teams.
that series too.
You know, they lose in the second round. The next year they're in the conference finals. And the next year they're in the finals, maybe winning it. But that's not what happened with the New York Knicks.
Never happens
Now,
like that. Ant.
Do you think it's a triangle offense, or can we work around it? I mean, we don't have the players right now to run it, but
It's not. Here's
Sold
the
us a
here,
dream.
here's the thing. It's not so much about the triangle offense. It's about players. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm not against the triangle offense. It can work. But when the triangle offense didn't work when Kurt Rambis was coaching the Minnesota Timberwolves, the triangle
And
offense
he's
didn't.
on our staff.
Right, the triangle offense didn't work when Bernie Bickerstaff was coaching the Bobcats 10 years ago.
Correct.
It's all about your personnel. You look at the Bulls from when they won championships in 91, 92, 93, and 96, 97, 98. They had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, John Paxson, Ron Harper. Ron Harper was a guy who averaged 20 points per game before he got to the Bulls. Dennis Rodman, all in their primes. When Phil Jackson won with the Lakers, he had Kobe Bryant, Shaq, Pau Gasol, Andrew Bynum, Ron Artest, Lamar Odom, Robert Horry, all in their primes.
These
Rick
are all
Fox,
complete
all in
We
their
need
primes.
shooters
So-
and a center.
So
Yeah.
I'm not against the triangle offense, but it's all
Yeah.
about your personnel. And Jeff Van Gundy told me this on my show as well. With 5-6 minutes left in the game, it's not even about the triangle offense. It's about give the ball to Michael Jordan, give the ball to Kobe Bryant,
Yeah.
and get the hell out of the way.
Away.
It's true.
Give the
That's
ball
what
to the
it
best
is.
Just
player.
isolate and go. Yeah.
And
Live and
the NBA,
die
it's so
with
hard
them.
to play defense. I mean, you got such
Yeah,
these
definitely.
pure shooters.
Definitely.
With their pivot moves and step back shots. There's no defense.
Nelly, I
That's-
always say to
that's why
you-
I like college basketball. There's a little more defense to it, but the NBA, these guys are all
No,
stars.
College is
see,
more of a
dis-
system.
I disagree
Yes,
about the
exactly,
NBA
yeah.
not playing defense, and here's
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
They don't play defense at all.
No,
It's
no,
all
you're
man to
absolutely-
man. It's all
you couldn't-
man to man. It's all.
you couldn't be more wrong.
No,
You don't
let's
think
hear.
so?
Yeah, you couldn't be more wrong, and I say that respectfully. You couldn't.
I
be
want to
more
hear
wrong.
this because I
I didn't hear this.
want to hear this.
Because here's why: if they didn't play defense in the NBA, how come guys? And I'm not only meant to call out some of your Duke players, but there's some guys that come to mind. If they didn't play defense in the NBA, why didn't Trajan Langdon have a 15-year career from Duke? He came out of Duke in 1999.
Yeah.
Why isn't JJ Redick a star? Why isn't Adam Morris? Well, he's a scrub, but why aren't these guys that are great shooters in college or great score? Ed O'Bannon from UCLA. I can go on and
They
on.
didn't play defense.
I can go on and on. Why didn't these? No, but they couldn't score either. Why couldn't they score? Because guys in the NBA play defense.
Okay. All right.
I'm telling
gotcha.
you, because if guys
It's
in the NBA
different.
play
Man to man. College is basically zone defenses.
But what I'm saying, and my point, they're
They
playing man
let
to
you
man.
shoot in zone defenses.
JJ Redick turned into a decent
No,
NBA
It took
player.
him a couple years. It took him a couple
My
years
point is
first,
though,
though.
but my
Yeah.
point is though, you said they didn't play defense in the NBA. They play tough defense in the NBA because they didn't.
I
play
agree.
if they didn't play defense, guys would have better careers that were really good scorers in college. Because if they didn't play defense, then a guy like a Trajan Langdon, who was a great shooter in college, could just, shoot.
Right.
But I'm talking about like guys like Kevin Durant with his size and ability. You can't guard his three. He's too big.
Well, no, Kevin Durant.
LeBron running down the hole. You can't guard that.
But you get guys like Kevin Durant, LeBron James. Those are once in a lifetime players.
Okay. Well, look at Stephen Curry. His dribble is unbelievable.
No, Steph Curry
scores
is
amazing.
Probably the best pure shooter.
But I'm saying like Carmelo
and Harden, you can't guard Harden.
Fadeaway and he hits it.
But
James Harden's always at the
Harden does it all.
Those guys you're mentioning right now, James Harden, Carmelo Anthony, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James. Those are all exceptional all-star franchise players.
You know what?
You're right.
I was having this argument with a buddy of mine the other day about Carmelo Anthony. He was saying how Carmelo's never going to win a championship because he can't play defense and this and that. I was telling him, I will trade his offense for his defense because the NBA is a system. You look at a guy like Tom Thibodeau. It's a system, Yes, you anchor it around a great defensive player like Joakim Noah and an on-ball defender like Jimmy Butler. But if you have one or two good defenders and you anchor it around a great system,
it's all about team defense.
So I will trade Carmelo's bad defense
for his great
offense
any day of the weekend.
Yeah, team defense is huge. If you look at the Knicks in the late '90s, Allen Houston, for example, wasn't necessarily a great one-on-one defender, but he was a great help defender and a great team defender.
Correct.
So he could kind of blend in, but also he was surrounded by a lot of other guys that were great defenders, guys like Charlie Ward, Chris Childs, John Starks with Charles Oakley or Camby in the later 90s years. So those guys were all great defenders. So a guy like Allen Houston could blend in. With this Knick team, you don't have a lot of great defenders, but if you're a bad defender, you can blend in.
I don't like our I mean, obviously, we can't judge anything now. We couldn't really judge much. I didn't like our roster coming into it, but we'll see next year.
No, of course
we'll see next year.
It'll be a whole different
You know what?
roster
You got
next year,
teams like the Spurs with their team defense.
Big auditions next year.
Indiana, Chicago. Like I love watching Chicago, Indiana, and the Spurs.
Great systems.
Great
systems.
And you know what? Yeah, I do take that back with the defense.
Right?
And put me in my place.
No, I agree. That's why I agreed with his point.
Love it.
They play hard defense. We just don't play hard defense.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. That's what it is.
Speaking of a team play, a team that I've been so impressed with. They're just the prototypical San Antonio Spurs of the East this season. The Atlanta Hawks.
I was just saying this before.
You mentioned being
about unselfish basketball.
Mike Budenholzer, their coach, who's done a phenomenal job, was probably going to win the Coach of the Year.
Absolutely.
He should win the Coach of the Year.
In the NBA is a product of Greg Popovich. He's a Greg Popovich disciple.
Then it's
easy.
That's
they're playing Popovich style basketball.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Hawks have been incredible, and I think they can definitely make a nice run in the playoffs. And it's interesting because they won 38 games last year. They snuck into that 8th spot. They took the Indiana Pacers to 7 games. And they've really taken that next step. They don't really have a star. They'll probably have an all-star. I could see Al Horford making the all-star.
Al Horford, I was going to say,
but,
excellent.
With Al Horford,
Jeff Teague's decent though at the point guard.
Jeff Teague,
the whole team is very
Kyle Korver.
Yeah, Kyle Korver could shoot.
Paul Millsap,
shooter in the league.
Yeah, he is. Paul Millsap's very good too. Yes.
And I like what I seen from Dennis Schroeder off their bench.
He's
good.
The Atlanta Hawks have been extremely impressive. Definitely by far the biggest surprise in the NBA this year, without a doubt.
30-8.
Yes.
Yep, they're incredible. Beat the Knicks twice early in the year as well. Obviously.
But Ed, I would like to get into your talk. Like, how did you start out like sportscasting for the Knicks Block Radio and stuff? I'd like to hear your story, how it all began. Like, let's go into your bio a little bit here.
Yeah, we could do that. So I left the Bronx when I was 8 years old, and I grew up in a small, tiny town in upstate New York called Walton, which is 3 hours from the city. And I love sports. I love the Knicks, the Yankees, Giants, Rangers. I loved all sports, but obviously basketball the most. In high school, I was kind of a troublemaker. I never really thought about what I wanted to do for a career. Just kind of like messed around. Then I moved down to the city when I was 17 years old, and I got a job with my uncle at the Board of Elections in Lower Manhattan. And I was only living in the city for 3 months at the time. And 9/11 happened, which obviously we all know about, the whole world knows about. And I was in the corner of Broadway and Wall Street, and I ran from the first building falling, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we didn't leave that day till 2 o'clock.
That's crazy.
42 Broadway. So I was messed up for about 2-3 years, and I still think about it all the time. I have nightmares about it. So either way, I was just working in like the mailroom, not knowing what I want to do for a career, or maybe this was going to be my career. And then where I grew up, I didn't have sports talk radio because I had like WDLA country music. I didn't have sports talk, so I started.
Had to milk a cow.
Yeah, exactly. So the first sports talk I started listening to was the Michael Kay show on ESPN Radio. and I just fell in love. Obviously, I always knew who Michael was.
John Juan.
Yeah, I've always knew who Michael Kay was from, him doing the Yankees forever. He actually used to do the pre- and post-game shows for the Knicks back on the MSG Network in the 90s as well. Yep, he did. And started listening to that show, and they have these commercials for the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go try that. I got personality. I can talk sports. I can do this. And I went to an audition for the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and I made it. I made the school.
That's awesome.
It's a nice program. I completed it. And when I completed it, I was like, oh, man, okay, what am I going to do now? I got this certificate saying I'm authorized to work in a TV or radio station. But, where am I going to go with this?
Yeah.
So I had just graduated from the school, and it was the day of the Yankees-Twins Game 1 in 2004. Santana versus, I think it was Kevin Brown. Santana threw a hell of a game that game, and the Yankees lost. I think it was versus Kevin Brown, but who cares?
He didn't have a broken hand that day?
Yeah.
No, not that day. Not that day.
Nope.
You didn't take lessons.
Not that. But I remember I was sitting in the second to last row in Yankee Stadium hearing the pop on Joe Mauer's glove. But anyway, so I was walking into that game, and there's, if you remember, Wally and the Key. They used to be on ESPN Radio.
Yeah.
And I see those guys, along with, if he's listening or watching the replay, I got to say Steve Hart, who still works at ESPN New York in the promotions department, or traffic now, I think. But shout out to Steve Hart. So I'm walking to the game, and I see Steve Hart, who I didn't know who he was, but I saw Wally and Tom. And I'm like, oh, my God, I want to meet them so bad. So I pull this guy over, who happened to be Steve Hart, and I said, can I meet Wally and Tom? And Steve was just like, sure. He's like, hey, Wally, Tom, this kid wants to meet you guys. So I was so pumped because I had followed Wally Matthews since I was a kid. He used to be on this show called The Last Word on Fox Sports with Jim Rome, and he also wrote for the New York Post.
Yes.
So I've been a fan of Wally forever. And we started talking. We talked for 20 minutes. I didn't even tell him that I was interested in being in Sports Talk Radio.
Right.
I was just talking sports to them. The Yankees in the playoffs, A-Rod, talking about the Knicks. They had just signed Jamal Crawford a few months before. We were just talking sports. So then finally I said, I wanted to get into sports. Do you guys need interns? And Wally's like, call our boss tomorrow and say you met me. I'm like, all right, sounds good.
Nice.
So I call the boss at the time, who was Aaron Spielberg, and I told him I met Wally outside Yankee Stadium at Stan's. So Aaron said, send me a resume. On my resume, all I had is that I worked at the Board of Elections, the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and I delivered newspapers in Walton, New York. I had nothing on my resume. So Aaron's kind of like, we don't really have many interns ready, so I really don't know, man. So I basically just annoyed the hell out of Aaron for a month straight.
Good.
Every day. Bring me in,
Persistent.
bring me in, bring me in, bring me in. And also one of my idols at that time was also Brandon Tierney. And I remember I would call Aaron and I would tell him I love Michael Kay and Brandon Tierney. And Aaron's like, we'll see, Anthony. So finally, end of October, he brings me in for an interview. Interview goes pretty well, but he's like, you have no experience at all. I'm like, well, I went to the trade school. I can do this. He's like, I'll let you know in a few weeks. So I just go, can you just tell me now?
Yeah, exactly. Like, seriously.
And he's like,
you gotta wait a couple weeks.
Gotta hold you on.
Your heart,
and he's like, all
stomach.
right, can you start Monday? I'm like, yep.
Yeah, nice.
So
That's awesome.
I started Monday, and I ended up working there for 4 years.
Wow.
I was like the ultimate intern. As an intern, it got to the point after 2 months as an intern. Some say I was the greatest intern of all time in ESPN Radio. It got to a point. And this might be illegal, so I don't want to get them in trouble. And I love them. But it was back in 04, 05. I was working 80 hours a week as an intern.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was producing the Knicks. I was helping produce.
That's a lot of coffee
Knicks,
breaks.
The Knicks pre and post game shows. I was helping. I was helping on the Wally and the Key show. I'd help on the Michael Kay show. I helped out when Stephen A. got hired. Then I eventually got hired as a producer, and I got to do a lot of cool things there. I made so many connections. Awesome. I went out to Indianapolis for the Final Four. I covered the Knicks were in the playoffs, but I covered the Nets in the playoffs. Jets and Giants training camps. I did so many things.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
I made so many relationships that I left there in 08, and I started my own thing in 2009 with the Knicks blog. And so basically, Tommy D, who used to run the Knicks blog, was kind of like, he knew I was connected. He knew I could get super guests on. And he said, you can have the platform. We can't pay you right now, but you can have the platform.
Get your name out there. Right.
And obviously, I didn't want to be behind the scenes anymore. Even though I love being at ESPN, I didn't want to be behind the scenes anymore. So I started my own show on the KnicksBlog.com. The first show was, I believe it was June 5th or June 6th of 2009. It was on the 10-year anniversary of the Larry Johnson 4-point play. My first guest I ever had on that show was Wilson Chandler.
Oh, wow.
And the show just blew up. And I'd say within like a year, almost every Knick game I've gone to since, fans stop me every game. Anthony, I love your show. Some calls some nights I have 30 calls on hold.
That's awesome.
That has to feel amazing. That has to feel
That's
great.
just the story in a nutshell. I just blew it up. Then I actually left SNY, and I actually came back less than a year later. I have a contract with them now.
Oh, great.
And I have a few shows with them, and got a few more things on the horizon. I'm on ESPN New York 98.7 FM every Saturday. The Bill Daughtry now. And I kind of started all from the ground up. But I also want to tell a story, if you don't mind, and we talked about this in the car, about the first guy I ever interviewed, though. So in 2005, me and 2 other guys I went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting with, Spanky and Anthony, shout out to Spanky and Anthony, we decided to do our own sports show. It was called the Sports Trinity. And at the time, I was interning at ESPN, so I had access to get guys on. So we had this show in Long Island with 3 listeners a show, but I was getting the biggest guests on these shows.
That's awesome.
So our first show was going to be Thursday night, or almost actually 10 years ago to this day. I wonder what the date was. It was around now, on a Thursday night. And we had our first show Thursday night, okay? So we didn't have a guest yet. So I'm like, I'll just ask BT to call in, or Wally, or Michael K. One of those guys will do it for me. So it was a Saturday morning, and I was interning, and I had to go to work that day. And the ESPN was on 17, and the New York Knicks offices were on 14. I get in the elevator on the Saturday, and who gets on the elevator with me but my idol, John Starks.
No, that was your first. Oh, that's
Sounds
great.
like an ESPN
So
That's gotta be great.
he's on the elevator with me, and I'm just like shaking. I'm just like, and first thing I'm thinking of, I don't even have a camera with me. It was 2005, you know what I mean? I can't even get a picture. So I'm like, you're my idol, I love you. So as he gets to 14, I get off with him. And I had no business going to the Knicks offices. So I'm like, listen, Mr. Starks, I'm doing my first ever radio show on Thursday night. Would you come on? I didn't think he'd say yes. He goes, sure, take my number. I'm like,
That's great.
you're giving me your number? He's like, yeah, call me. So I call and I leave him probably like 5 voicemails. I kind of went,
That's it.
crazy. He never calls me back.
I left him 7.
He never calls me back, so I'm like, I guess he's not coming on. So I booked Brandon Tyrion to come on. And the show started at 11 o'clock that night. It's about 10:45 before I go on air for the first time. I'm so nervous. I get a phone call from a blocked ID. 15 minutes before the show, I'm like, hello? He's like, is this Anthony? And I'm like, yeah, who's this? He's like, it's John Starks. I'm like, what's up, John? He's like, do you still want me on your show? I'm like, yes. Are you kidding me?
That's great.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
So,
Yeah,
I updated my AOL Instant Messenger right away that John Starks is coming on. Literally that night, I think it was the first show I ever did. There was really no social media then, but the whole town of Walton, where I grew up, was listening that night.
That's awesome.
The first person I ever interviewed was my idol growing up.
I can't write about a story.
yeah, that's
And then
right.
I've interviewed him probably 50 times since then. I developed a relationship with him, as well as like guys like Larry Johnson, Allen Houston. Those guys have all become friends of mine,
Awesome.
and I've done a lot of stuff with them. Walt Frazier, Earl Monroe. But yeah, the first person I ever interviewed was my idol, John Starks.
Awesome.
Wow.
Speaking of friends, I said hanging your head. You have a locks hanging your
I
head?
do. I'm like the 4th member. No, I'm just kidding. I can't rap.
D-Block.
I was in the booth the other night, but not much came out of my mouth.
Nice.
I gotta give credit to guys who can rap. I can't rap. I can talk. I can't rap though.
Totally
Can
different.
any of you guys rap?
Affiliation with them?
I can't rap at all.
I rap.
You
I
rap?
did a Rex.
Oh, yeah.
I did a Rex Ryan rap on the show. It was very bad.
Okay.
Very bad. I lost
right.
bet. I did a Rex Ryan.
Everybody knows, for me growing up, I was also a huge hip hop fan as well.
Got a few hip hop fans in here.
Yeah, no, I know that. We talked about it
The young crowd.
on the
Young
way
crowd.
up.
Yeah.
So I was at obviously Jadakiss, one of my favorite rappers of all time. I was at a Knick game 4 years ago, right after the Knicks got mellow, and he was down by the court. So I introduced myself to him, told him about the show I did. I knew he was a Knick fan, and he gave me his number, and he was like, "Hit me up." So I hit him up, and we played phone and text tag for a while, and he eventually came on my show on an April night in 2011. It's actually one of my favorite interviews of all time because he stayed on for about an hour. The first 10-15 minutes we talked basketball, and he's very knowledgeable about basketball, but then the last half hour, he just told me stories about the 90s and working with Biggie and how much Nas means to him and stuff like that. And him and I developed a really good relationship over the last few years, and it's pretty cool because I go to the studio and hang out with him and all his people. Shot to Styles and Ice Pick and Kiwana and all those people. And I actually brought Jadakiss with me to ESPN on Saturday, and he came on with Bill Daughtry and I and Larry Hardesty and Ian Begley.
Bill must love that.
We actually had 5 of us in studio at the same time. It was myself, Jadakiss, Ian Begley, Larry Hardesty, and Bill Daughtry, all in the studio, all talking New York Knicks and NBA basketball.
Oh, wow.
So I said this the other day, actually. I haven't made the most money. I've done okay, but I've done things over the last 10 years that you can't put a price on.
Right.
Whether it's interviewing your idol for the first time, whether it's playing basketball at Madison Square Garden. I've done that numerous times. I've hit game winners at Madison Square Garden, pick up games. So I've had experiences that you can't put a price on. I mean, there was one time I was doing a show and Landry Fields is on. And in the middle of the show, I get a message from my producer, and he says Spike Lee's on the phone.
Wow.
Spike Lee calls in
Called your show?
during the show with Landry
The
Fields on.
biggest Knicks fan.
And when
Yes.
Spike Lee and Landry Fields start talking, and Spike Lee was actually in the airport, but he was like listening on his phone.
All right.
He walks by Ron Artest. Ron Artest grabs the phone from Spike Lee, and now on my show at the same time
That's
was
amazing.
me, Landry Fields, Spike Lee, and Ron Artest.
Oh,
all
There
at the
he
same
is. Look
time.
at that tie.
But,
What a story.
and then I've had Spike Lee on my show as a guest also. He came out with me one time. He stayed out with me for over an hour. Just talking Knicks, telling
Brilliant
stories.
guy, huh?
It was an incredible interview. That interview was so crazy because it got to a point
man.
where Spike Lee just took over the interview and started interviewing me on my show.
Oh,
but it was
that's awesome.
Spike Lee, so you just
That's
gotta let him
great.
do it.
Let him go.
Yeah, I mean that
him
was
do what he
definitely one
wants.
of the best
You got
interviews
game.
of my life, and I've had Jeff Van Gundy on a few times. But the last time I
Love
had
Jeff.
Jeff Van Gundy on was definitely one of the best interviews of my life because before the show, he said he wasn't sure he could come on, and that same night I also had Kurt Thomas on. So Jeff said to me, "Text me when you're done with Kurt, and if I can call in, I will." So Kurt comes on for 20 minutes. Kurt and I rap, and I text Jeff. I'm like, "Hey, Kurt just got done. If you want to call in." Jeff texts back, "I got 10 minutes. You respect that." So I asked Jeff about this year's team. We, talk about
He's
Shumpert.
very blunt.
Talk about Shumpert,
Yes.
Mello around
Very
the league.
blunt.
So now I get to that 10-minute mark. You want to respect that. So I'm all right, coach. We're gonna let you get out of here. But real quick, do you ever just sit back and think about the teams from the late 90s that you coached or the staffs you were on as an assistant with Pat Riley, and all of a sudden he stayed on for 25 more minutes
Wow.
and opened up about his Knick days like he never had before. So many Knicks fans reached out to me and they said, "I've heard 1,000 Jeff Van Gundy interviews since he left the Knicks in 2001, but never heard him open up like that."
That's awesome.
It was a weird position for me because here I am as the host of the show thinking to myself, I could talk to him for 8 more hours. When do I end this interview?
Yeah.
You know,
What do I
you
do?
Keep going.
Just keep
So I
going.
I
kept
think you did
going,
the right
and
thing. Keep going.
and finally I just said, "All right, coach, we're gonna let you get out of here." But I think he would have still kept going. I wasn't sure. But he said 10 minutes, and now we got to the 35-minute mark.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Jeff hangs up. A few minutes later, Tina Cervasio just calls in to say
Oh,
hello.
Jesus.
So it was one of those shows.
awesome.
That's the thing. Obviously, every show I think I do is good. Every show should be good. But I've had a lot of shows where after the show is over, people are like, "That was classic." And
That's
things
what
like
you
that,
live for.
you
Yeah.
just
That's
can't put a
amazing,
price
yeah.
on. Things like
agree.
that, you live for.
Exactly. You
Exactly.
live for it. And I told the Monk and Dugan here, it was just, we love to hear those positive reviews and negative reviews too, because you always want to get better. But those
Oh
positive
yeah, no. Listen, as I've gotten more followers, whether it's on social
Yeah.
media, you get your occasional tweets say you suck.
You're always
Yeah,
bring
bring it on.
That's always
Bring
I
it
said,
on.
meet me in the street, baby.
Exactly.
No, that's I used to.
Everybody's not going to love you.
That's that hip hop coming out.
No, I'll
man.
be honest with you. I've never really responded to trolls that much.
No.
If you're funny with
They're
me,
everywhere.
and if you want to
Yeah.
clown on me, that's fine. If you're gonna get personal and say you effing suck or something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah. Yeah.
That's when you know you're doing something
gonna
right,
respond.
though.
I'm not gonna respond.
No.
But if you want to just like have some fun, that's fine.
It is
You know
what it
I
is.
mean?
Yeah.
I got
It
you.
is what it is.
What of all time? What was your ultimate favorite part of being in this business? What is your
Was it the
ultimate
first?
favorite?
Or-
Was it the John Stockton? interview, or-
That's an easy answer.
that was John Stockton.
No, being on the show.
Man.
My favorite moment
Like
of
if you had to pick number one over anything.
the last 10 years, I guess I gotta say the first time having Starks on, even though it probably wasn't my best interview at all, but
Yeah,
that
still.
just getting him on, especially looking back over the last 10 years and what's happened. Maybe the first time being on ESPN New York a few months
That's gotta
ago.
be, yeah.
Even though I've known Bill Daughtry and Larry Hardesty for 10 years, when I was in that studio in mid-October, a few months ago, right before it went on, I started to get kind of nervous, and I never
Yeah.
get nervous. And I was like, wow. Even though I'd worked there for 4 years, have relationships with almost everybody that works there, from Michael Kay to his producer, my good friend Ryan Hurley, John Winthrop, all those guys
That's
are all,
big time.
are all
Wow,
friends of
okay.
mine. I'm always on the other side. And now I'm in the studio with Bill about to talk Knicks.
It's gotta
And
be
I'm
an
like,
amazing
wow,
feeling,
that's
though.
that was my dream 10 years ago. And to be honest, and I hope I go further with ESPN New York, I really do. As much as I listen to WFAN, WFAN when I got down to the city, it's cool. But ESPN New York, ESPN Radio meant the most to me. So to actually be in front of that mic to see ESPN New York, and
Dream come
that
true.
meant the world to me. And it means
Yeah,
the
the
world to me.
benchmark. Yeah.
Yep. And every
benchmark.
Saturday
Definitely.
I go down there. Then I'm on with Billy and Larry.
It's awesome.
It's a great feeling.
That really
And I
has
would like to say
has to be an
congratulations
amazing
to you.
feeling.
It's an honor
Yep.
to you to be here with us tonight. I mean, I've listened to your cast. You're phenomenal. You're definitely a voice of the Knicks. I'm just telling you right now.
Thank you.
Very, very entertaining. Love listening to you. We're
Thank you
very
so
honored
much.
to have you.
Yep.
No, it's been a pleasure being on with you guys. Really
Before we go to commercial break, I
what's
just got to ask you one question.
Yo, you need to talk more, man. Yo, what the hell? This guy needs to talk more.
Everyone's going and rolling. This conversation's going great, so I don't want to interrupt it. But the one thing before we go to break.
No, I'm just kidding. What's up?
Obviously, you had a lot of people you interviewed.
Yeah.
Who's the one person you want now?
There's a few. If I could interview anybody in no random order, it would be Patrick Ewing, Nas, Eminem, Carmelo Anthony.
That's a good four. All right.
And J. Cole. Because I do have a lot of hip hop artists on my show too. Because I tie them in basketball. I'd probably put J. Cole in there too.
Okay.
So because all the basketball ones I've interviewed already. Like, I've been lucky enough over the years to have Allen Houston, Larry Johnson, and obviously it'd be great to interview Michael Jordan, but LeBron, yeah, but that's probably not going to happen. So I'm being realistic. I think the guys I want to interview the most are probably. But if you just put it down to two, it would be Patrick Ewing and Nas. Those two.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you can get those. I'm sure you probably will. All right, guys. That's our NBA segment. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little NFL, a little NCAA. So come on back.
Thanks, Matt.
You got.
So latest news in the On It world: new Alpha Brain formula, which is just a slight tweak on the old formula.
It's fascinating to me that this is a new frontier.
Every single report I've gotten back is positive. All these people that have tried it, I'm getting testimonial after testimonial.
I think Alpha Brain's amazing. That was the first supplement I took from them, and just like you hear, I think you feel amazing. Overall, feel great. Mental focus, feel sharp.
By the way, Max Eberle, one of the best pool players, a great instructor, is just raving about Alpha Brain.
3 hours of sleep at the most, and it would keep me focused throughout the day and ready to go.
Awesome dreams at night, lucid dreams. You know, my girlfriend Sarah takes it. She was like talking about flying around. I definitely had some pretty intense dreams with it as well.
Do you realize there are dreams in the middle of them?
No,
because I'm doing that all the time.
They were once knighted by the creator of Ustream.tv.
3 Knights of Ustream.
In being the 3 Knights of Ustream, their mission is to help turn up the volume on the last source of freedom of speech there is, the internet. So join the flagship show of the Zedalza Entertainment Network, Zedalza, New York, every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, streaming live from ZenLive.tv. They'll show you just how it's done in the World Wild West. ZenLive.tv! Independent music, alternative news, the underground and the underrated. Addicted to Ink, a proud sponsor of the Zedalza Entertainment Network, is Westchester's premier tattoo, piercing, and apparel destination, offering only the finest tattoo and piercing services as well as the best atmosphere you will find. Addicted to Ink is located conveniently at 38 Westchester Avenue in White Plains, New York, right across the street from the Westchester Mall. If you got the itch for more ink, like the Zedalza boys do, get your work done right. Visit www.addictedtoinktattoos.com for more information. Are you a smoker and you need to quit, but you're discouraged cause it's harder than some like to admit? Favorite White Plains vapor. Favorite White Plains vapor. Are you a non-smoker but you like to do the tricks? Well, these are non-toxic clouds that exit your lips. Favorite White Plains. Oh yeah. Yeah. White Plains Vapors, located at 210 Mamaroneck Avenue in White Plains, New York. Visit our location and choose from a wide selection of exotic flavors.
Hey, this is Vinny Pastor. You can call me Big Pussy, and you're watching ZenLive.tv.
There are men who live their lives brighter and darker than others. And through these experiences, they form bonds stronger and harder than the rest. Here we celebrate this common bond of uncommon men. One does not choose to come here. There are no interviews. A man's right to be here at this table must be earned before he's offered a seat at it. Today we welcome another man who has earned his seat at the table.
You're watching the Zadaza Entertainment Network on ZenLive.tv.
Welcome back to Pipe Bomb Sports. We finished our NBA talk. We're going to move to NFL and the playoffs. Hot. Yeah, what more can you ask for? Last weekend we had 4 great matchups. Well, besides, Carolina, they kind of threw it away. But right now, we had the Patriots over the Ravens. Your Ravens.
I knew that was going to happen. Come on.
on the back still?
Flacco's going to Foxborough. Come on.
Listen, the refs did all that they could, man, with that Darrelle Revis call. They tried their best to get the Ravens through.
Come on, Andrew.
They tried their best.
All the talk with Joe Flacco being one of the best players.
Ravens.
Yeah. Well, he came up against the best coach, the best scheme.
End of the season with a
Bill
pick.
Belichick.
You know what? We cannot blame Flacco because Lars came through, Monk. 4 touchdown passes.
He did.
But it was vintage Ravens Patriots.
Yeah.
Flacco throws the ball to
Great.
tight end off his hands, kicks it 3, and Brady goes down the field, scores 7, and that's it. You can't blink against New England.
That game was a brain game to me. Harbaugh against
like a chess
Belichick.
match.
Yeah, it was
Exactly. That's all it was.
They blew 14-point leads twice.
Julian Edelman, some arm, huh?
Some arm. He used to be a quarterback.
Used to be a quarterback what, in high school?
That's a great play. Yeah. So after that game, obviously you had the protege beating his mentor.
This was the shocking for me.
That was the greatest game.
I watched the greatest game. I would say
anything more about Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck beating Peyton Manning.
It was the most shocking result of the weekend, definitely. Andrew Luck. Nelly, you said it.
Yeah.
He's gonna.
I called it since week 8. I said week 8 that Andrew Luck was going to be Peyton Manning in the playoffs, and that was it. And you know why? Because this sport, you got to go with storylines. That's what it is. Andrew Luck's now third year in the league. Peyton Manning a little older. Who else is Peyton Manning going to lose to if it wasn't going to be Tom Brady?
Right.
Or if it wasn't going to be the Super Bowl, it was going to be Andrew Luck. And Peyton Manning played awful.
Yeah.
He absolutely played awful.
Well, he had a torn groin.
And you know what? I hate to say it, but thank God it was that. Because if it was old age, I would get upset because I want Peyton Manning to come back.
Yeah.
I was like, I hope he gives one more year and gives the organization a chance to draft the quarterback.
Now I have a question for that game. Obviously, the torn quad, it wasn't known until this past weekend. But now that it's out, it was affected him in the San Diego Charger game. So now you have 2 weeks for this game. I know it's Peyton Manning. I know it's Peyton Manning.
I know.
But do you start him?
Not sit him, Duke.
Peyton Manning got one arm.
I would have sat him, Duke, and I'm with you.
It's tough because now you have 2 weeks for Brock Osweiler
Knowing he has a torn quad?
I understand, but he's one of the greatest he's one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever watch. Come on,
Oh, he's a great quarterback, but with injury,
he couldn't throw more than a 7-yard route.
But look at Rodgers. He's playing with a torn calf.
Torn calf. And he got lucky.
Sensational
stuff. Rodgers has more arm strength, and right now he's a way better quarterback than Peyton Manning.
Right now,
was it
age?
Vinny, got a question. Was it just Peyton Manning's fault why the Denver Broncos didn't come this through, or it was across the board?
It was across the board. It was across the board. It was stupid penalties. Talib took about 4 or 5 penties himself.
Yeah.
Cost him 3 first
He couldn't guard anybody. This shutdown corner, the prototypical shutdown.
Yeah, it was just a joke.
In all honesty, Peyton Manning overthrew his wide receivers for touchdown passes
He couldn't run
4
the
times.
ball. 80 rushing yards, 85 rushing yards. You can't win a playoff game like that.
I just think people are sleeping on how good the Colts defense is. They're not bad,
They're
man.
not bad.
They shut down Hill and Bernard. They played great against Peyton Manning. A big forced fumble when they needed at midfield. They played very good.
Yeah.
And you know what? If New England sleeps on them and make a mistake, you got to play clean against this team right now.
This week's a whole nother game now. This week they're going into Foxborough to play Brady and Belichick in a conference championship game. Come on.
I don't even care.
I'd love to see the Colts win this game, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't
they
even
met
care.
their match, and that's it.
I don't even care that they dismantled them in the regular season.
Yeah.
I'm not really looking at that.
Neither am I.
I just look at Belichick and Brady in the playoffs. I just look at this is Tom Brady's 2009 Derek Jeter year in my eyes. That last run of I'm still effective in the league. I'm still one of the top guys. I want that last championship to cover.
He was hearing how much after he was hearing how much before they beat the Bengals on Sunday night.
Funny that the Super Bowl's in Arizona when they lost to the Giants.
Yeah.
Funny that
That is funny. Yeah.
What a coinky dick, huh?
Right. And you know what? Sticking on top, he had to beat Baltimore again. That was their scare game, I feel like.
Yeah,
you know what? I think if you're a New England fan,
you.
an NFL fan, you got to feel good about New England's chances coming into this game, Meister. I think it's too low to begin with, the spread of this game.
The Colts can't run the football. They are a pass-heavy team. They're never going to be able to control the game. Then they cannot score with Belichick.
I will say one thing. Everybody talks about T.Y. He's not the number one. He's not this. He's not that. T.Y. looks...
He's a great receiver.
T.Y. looks pretty good to me.
He looks real good, Andrew. He looks real
T.Y.
good. I was
always
always one
T.Y.
to say
this
he's
week,
not
though.
number one, but he's great.
Nelly, they play clean football.
They
do.
But they got Revis now. Revis on T.Y. He's going to shut him down.
Well, if they're calling pass
down.
interferences like they did last week in that Ravens game, Revis is not going to be too effective.
I know.
This is a passing league.
Yeah, it's all it is passing. But
So-
you can't win. I mean,
Andrew Luck, Bill Belichick was saying,
Well-
Andrew Luck is like a sixth receiver. It's like you have to game plan for a sixth receiver.
Yeah, but when you
in the
play
side.
them, you have when you play a team like the Patriots with a high-powered offense, you have to control the clock. You have to, and the Colts can't do that. I'm sorry, they can't do that.
You know what's
They're not
funny about
able to
controlling the
control
clock? You looked at the Patriots last week. What'd they run? 7 running plays?
Yeah.
So you talk about them controlling the clock. Are they really maybe just trying to get downfield, score as quick as possible, and say, here, take the ball, see if you could score on us? We have a good enough defense to get the ball back and keep scoring on you? That's what I saw.
You're 100%. That
You know?
makes sense.
What about
The Ravens really gave them a run for their money.
They did. No, they did.
They played their best game, Baltimore.
Definitely.
They let their chips full on the table.
Yeah.
Hands
See, what I
off to them. A team had to win that game. And it was sad to see a team lose that game.
Nelly,
Gotta feel bad for
Dugan, you know what
right.
it is? We've avoided it. The biggest surprise to me this weekend, I have tons of friends, even living in New York.
You could say it.
America's team,
You could say
Dallas
it.
Cowboys.
The best game.
Did they
My
get
favorite
host?
game to watch.
I was holding this
It's
thing.
a simple question.
Listen.
It's a simple
Was
answer.
Des Bryant's catch a catch?
Get hosed.
According to the rules of the NFL, it's not a catch. Do I agree with the rule? No.
No.
Obviously, I really don't. I think
So
that
they played
rule
it by the rules.
needs to get changed. But
In your
according to the
eyes.
They
rule,
played it by the rules.
it was not a catch. But
Okay.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't
didn't.
bounce off the.
He
He
switched
came down
hands.
and he tried to extend the ball for some reason.
when you're that close to the end zone, you're trying to score. You're trying to
I
score.
know, but why didn't you just follow? You're on the 1 yard line.
How about this,
Smart.
Monk? How about if he extended his arm just a little bit further and he was over the pylon?
Oh God!
Just a little bit further. Just he alligator armed it instead of full extended it. Then we would have a real controversy.
That's even a bad play call in the game. It's 4th and 2.
Yes.
You have DeMarco Murray run the ball. Why are you throwing a ball in the end zone?
It almost
On
worked.
3rd and 1, right?
It almost
4th
worked.
and 2 that play.
No, I know, but even before that, on 3rd and
That's my
2,
point. And they
why didn't
take
you run the
Murray
ball?
out of the game on 4th and 2 to throw the ball downfield.
That's 4 down territory anyway. When
exactly.
What were they
should
down?
run the ball twice.
4 or 5 points?
4 points. 5 points they were down. Yeah.
Monk, if it's 4th and 2, you're not throwing a pass to the pylon.
I agree, Nelly.
You gotta hit
Nelly, I
Brennan.
agree.
You gotta hit someone over the middle. Even run the ball with Murray.
You have the best running back in the
It
league.
was just a bad play. Even
It's
before
tough.
halftime, 3rd and 1, Romo fumbles a snap, throws the ball downfield. Okay. Instead of running the ball, you threw the ball to the end zone, incomplete. You took a false start penalty, and then you missed a field goal. And then Aaron Rodgers went down the field, and he hit a field goal, a 6-point swing, because of bad coaching mistake.
Yeah, that halftime.
What did Jerry Jones do after
Big
the
swing
season
at
over?
halftime.
He signed
Let's
Garrett
extend
for 5
Jason
years.
Garrett
5 more
back.
years.
I know.
How don't you
know.
put the Lion game on Garrett? How don't you put the Packer game on Garrett?
I know.
Horrible play call.
It just seems
horrible.
Jones can
With
use,
Jerry Jones-
Jerry Jones
Horrible.
uses him as a puppet. That's what it is.
Right.
Terrible.
He's a Garrett's a
Kind of like
puppet.
Derek Fisher in New York, it seems.
Garrett's a
And a
puppet.
very lucky Marinelli came back. And you don't
Yeah,
know the Cowboys
defense,
do
the
this.
defense was played well for the Cowboys down the
I'm
stretch.
the biggest Cowboy hater there is, and I'll tell you, they played They had a great season. They
Definitely,
and Romo
definitely.
played great.
You know, but
it's just
but
bad play.
Vin,
calling
isn't
right
it
there.
just? Isn't it, guys? Isn't it just same song and dance
Every
with Jerry
year.
Jones and
Every
the
year.
Cowboys?
Every year,
Like what you were
Andrew,
saying with the
every
Knicks
year.
not winning, Anthony. The Cowboys fans must feel the same way. It's
every
since
year.
the night, you know.
It's heartbreaking.
How do you know they could do
Except
this
Knicks is
again?
48,
This was
so.
their chance, Monk. You don't know if Murray's going to be healthy next year. You don't know if Romo's going to be healthy next year. You don't know what they're going to look like. You know, oh, we'll get them next year. This was a building year. You don't know what it takes. You can go down in an instant. Something can change in an instant in the NFL.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In an instant.
So Aaron
Any player
Rodgers
can
beats
hurt
him
anytime.
on
The
one
Giants
leg.
could get that much better. The Eagles could take a leap. I mean, there's no guarantee with Dallas.
No.
They had a great
The
team.
only guarantee you have is an offensive line, and that is it.
Hey, they're gonna have.
And that is it. And
They
that's all
already
Dallas
said they're
has.
gonna put the franchise tag on Dez and working on re-signing
Yes.
Murray. So
You gotta get 'em both
you
back.
figure, yeah, they will. They will.
Yeah.
So Aaron Rodgers beats him on one leg. He goes what 8 for 8 on that last drive.
Yeah.
He's fantastic.
He is, yeah.
But guys,
Superstar.
he's going into Seattle. If you want to rerun this tape from like week 6, whatever, like this is the team. This is the team that I've been saying. In football, as opposed to other sports, I think if you win 2 years in a row, you are a dynasty. As opposed to
100%.
maybe in basketball where I would say 3 years is the benchmark.
It's a lot harder.
It's a lot harder. There's too many variables in the offseason with football. You lose too many guys. If you win 2 years in a row, in my eyes, you're a dynasty.
Absolutely.
So Pete Carroll, they're set up.
They're a dynasty without winning.
In my eyes, this weekend, it's 7 points. Forget the points.
It's
Forget
7.5 right now.
you know, I can see Green Bay covering, but Seattle's
under 47.
I see Seattle winning this game. I see them going to the Super Bowl.
And I'm
You gotta give me a score, Mom.
I'm with you, Andrew.
You gotta give me a score. Don't you finagle over here.
31-24.
Okay.
Seattle.
So you got
Green Bay covers by a half a point. Yeah.
See, for me, with this game, it would be easy if Aaron Rodgers was healthy.
Right.
Honestly,
He
if
is
anyone
not
could go into
at all.
Seattle and beat them in a conference championship game, it would be him, obviously.
Right.
But, man, it's hard. To play in
really
Seattle, it's really tough. I got to take Seattle in a blowout.
Dugan, don't you just at this point, you know, I have this argument with people about Russell Wilson and Luck. Don't you just trust Russell Wilson?
Yeah, he's great.
Hands?
He's so good.
Did you see his red zone percentage?
He can do everything. He can do everything.
In 50, I think 56 red zone possessions. He turned the ball over, I think, once or
He's
twice.
a smart quarterback.
You know, I'll tell you right now,
smart.
you give me defense, give me a running game, I want a quarterback like that. I want a game manager.
100%
Obviously,
right.
Andrew Luck can change the complexity of a game, and you have to game plan against him. Maybe not so much Russell Wilson, but listen, what is the most main important thing in sports? Leading the league in scoring or winning championships?
Defense wins
But look
championships.
who he is going to beat.
Yeah, he
beat Peyton last year.
I know.
You're going to beat Aaron.
this
You
year.
beat Kaepernick. You beat Drew Brees. And if you beat Tom Brady in the weekend, if he makes it there,
Nelly.
Russell Wilson's the new face of the NFL.
Look who we're talking about. We're talking about Luck and Wilson. Could they meet in the Super Bowl?
And then
It's very possible, is it not?
Luck went first overall.
I mean,
It's not gonna be, but they could.
My take in this game, you go back from week 1, who was missing, I hate to say this, but Percy Harvin's going to be missing this game.
100%.
I think the Packers are going to play lights out on defense. I really do see it.
Wow.
But I have to give Green Bay the edge. I like the Packers covering. I will take the 7.5. I see Seattle winning by 4.
Okay.
And I think it's going to play out like Kaepernick last year. I think Seattle's going to get a pick at the end of the game. I think Aaron, his mobility hurts him here. I think short passes the whole game. They're going to try to eat the clock. But I think Russell Wilson's too smart here. I don't think the Packers secondary is up for the challenge. Clay Matthews and Julius Peppers have to play out of their mind, stout defense in order to pull this out. But I just don't trust him. Russell Wilson is far beyond composed to pull this off. And the 12th man, Packers.
I've been saying it. Haven't I been saying it again?
I think Seattle
Seattle.
for the CP, but I like the Packers to cover. I like the Packers with the 7. I like them to cover.
I think it's going to be a blowout. Personally,
Really?
I think Seattle's going to blow them out.
Wow.
I got them by 14.
I like to think Green Bay is going to play with them.
Seattle's
because they got
cool.
robbed last year on Monday Night Football with the fake refs and whatnot. But I don't think it's going to happen.
God, I forgot about that.
I think Seattle
funny,
is going to actually run through this team. Rodgers is hurt.
Are they just going to run the ball on him, you're saying?
No, they're going to
pounding
fumble them. They're
yeah?
going to ground and pound.
pound.
Can I just ask one question?
Is good Green Bay? Green Bay's defense thrives on making turnovers. If they don't make turnovers, they're not going to win. Sorry.
Is Cam Chancellor Iron Man in an NFL?
Oh, he's great.
Is that what
He's phenomenal.
Did you see him jump over the offensive line twice? You would think after the first time, like, yo, guys, watch out for him jumping over the offensive line, and he jumps over it again.
Back to back.
How did he miss blocking that? Is the question.
I don't know.
How do you get snap count?
Yeah, exactly. You would think they would do a hard count, though. You would think.
Unbelievable.
You would think.
That's just an animal over there, though. In Seattle,
he is a leader. That defense is just.
an animal.
I mean, come playoff time, that defense is just.
And especially at home.
so
And
sad.
everyone knocked Sherman all season long. Sherman, like I said,
Vinny,
from last
he's a
year,
shutdown.
he is the best cornerback in football. The best.
Sick.
All right, so we all like Seattle in a landslide. I
Nelly got
Green Bay with the points.
I got Green Bay with points.
I got Seattle in a blowout.
Mark, I gotta ask you this: what is the only way you could see that Green Bay pulls this off? What do they have to do?
If they establish the run.
Establish the run. You got Lacey.
If Eddie Lacy's running, gaining first down, 6 yards on first down, keep Aaron Rodgers out of that position where he's going to have to rush out of the pocket because he's not going to.
You have to get all manageable third down. That's all you have to do.
Manageable third down. 3rd and 3. But guess what? On 3rd and 3, you're going to run the ball maybe with the hobbled Aaron Rodgers. Like you said, Dugan, that is the biggest key.
Lacey's been really good for the past 10 weeks.
He has.
100 yards.
Been great.
Do you think he can run really against this team?
I really believe.
That's why I said if.
Aaron is hurt.
It's a big
They're going to stack the box.
Big if.
Well, I really believe Green Bay has to go up 14-0 in this game to have a shot. Like
I still
they
think
had to
still have a
score
shot.
and then score 3 and out, score again. I think they had to get a 2-possession lead and put the pressure on the wide receivers of Seattle that they can't really effectively run the ball anymore and put it in Russell Wilson's hands and see what he can do. I think if they're trailing, Seattle, the 12th man, the full stars, the whole thing, they're all going to come and it's going to collapse. But any shot, I think it is essential for Green Bay to go a 2-possession lead early. If they fall behind, they're not coming back.
That
happened.
They're not coming back.
We all synonymously agree on that game.
Seattle going back.
Seattle's going back.
I'm hoping, for my sake, we disagree at the second game. I don't think we're gonna.
Yep.
Tom Brady, Foxborough, Belichick.
Sunday night.
The last run. It's
Sorry, Colts.
It's probably a little self-explanatory.
Almost 54.
Predictable.
Yeah. You know what? I'll start the segment off first.
Is 0-3.
I don't even think Andrew Luck's going to have...
Andrew Luck is 0-3 against the Pats.
Yeah.
They outscore him by over 20 points a game.
You know what was interesting, though? The second-ranked defense in the AFC, they got torn up by Andrew Luck.
Oh, yeah.
So
They did. You're exactly right.
But you know what? They don't game plan like Belichick game plans.
Nobody game plans like that, man.
T.Y. will be taken out of this game.
100%.
Guarantee.
I don't think they put guys like
Revis on.
Knicks and Moncrief to step up, but I don't know if that's possible.
Hey, Nick's been playing good.
Hakeem Nicks, special
Knicks is
place in our
playing good.
heart. Special place in our heart.
Yeah, but you think Haran's good enough for the Colts?
No, I don't.
I think Haran's
Is he a little
good.
Yeah.
I don't think he's good, Haran.
But
I mean, you had Trent Richardson, active, healthy scratch.
That's just an embarrassment.
Yeah, it is.
Let's touch back
Losing
on
Bradshaw was a big loss.
Oh, forget it. Humongous.
Let's touch back on New England
Yes.
a little bit. What about the ineligible man downfield? The play they ran against Baltimore, where the running back ran backwards and the double tight end came back down.
This was so interesting.
Daniels, are you kidding me? With this move, genius.
Well, Josh McDaniels, Belichick.
That's got to be a Belichick
We'll
move.
see.
This is unbelievable.
Belichick
You know what's funny about that play?
McDaniels
Avery ran up to the line of scrimmage, went to the referee, said, I'm ineligible. And then that was it. That was all he needed to do. It was like the Ravens, you want to try to figure this out for yourself? No problem. I'm going to run behind the line of scrimmage, and we're going to hit a wide open tight end for 20 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
They pulled, you know what scares me a little bit? Maybe they pulled out all the stops, all those strict plays. He's got more up his sleeve. He's got more up his sleeve.
Way more up his sleeve.
This is.
I love the Julian Allen.
He pulls his card, man.
Yes.
This is a team on a mission.
I agree.
Have you everybody watched the game at home when New England was down 14-0? Did you see what Tom Brady was doing on the sidelines? The guy's looking at the film. He's looking at the pictures.
He's a monster.
No sweat in his face. Not looking like Peyton Manning. Not looking like Marcus Mariota on Monday. This guy knew. It could have been 21-0, 28-0. He was coming back. They were on a mission. They would not lose that game against Baltimore. He played lights out against Baltimore.
6.5?
And
-7.
-7? This is a Foxborough party. I got New England winning by 17 in this game. I got 35-17. I'll put it on 35-17. Romp and stomp party. You just don't got the weapons, Luck. You can't hang with this team. You can't. Too much on defense, too much on offense. Bronx too much.
Ben?
I think. See, I love to take New England minus 7 points, but 7 points is too many points when you have two offenses that can actually score the ball here, guys. So that's why I am taking the Colts the points.
Wow.
I won't take two favorites on championship week, and I won't do that. So
I will take. I'll give the Colts the 7 points, and I'll give them another 6 because I think they lose by 14 or 17. Wow. This is Foxborough. This is Brady. Andrew Luck. They were saying last week how he's gonna get there, but not yet. And then he beat Peyton, so now everyone's saying maybe he could get there. Now you're running into the real test. Now I think he's running into the real test.
They'll cover 7 points.
The real golden boy.
They're not ready.
They're not ready.
They're not ready.
He doesn't have
In
the
the future,
team around him yet. Yes.
Exactly right.
I'll be stunned. Andrew Luck has to play for 6.
It is a lot of points, Vin, but
it's a touchdown.
That's why I'll take Foxborough.
No, I don't blame you.
Dudes, what do you feel?
Since week 4, when the press and everyone got on Belichick and Tom Brady, what have they done? They've come out and scored 35-plus points a game. They are on a mission. This Colts team is running into a bad situation right now. I'm telling you. What happened to them when they played? Bill Belichick devised a plan, a running game. A guy you've never even heard of, Jonas Gray, came in, ran for over 200 yards. This is what this guy does.
You think they're fresh?
Right now, what are the Colts doing? The Colts are trying to think, are they going to run the ball against us again? Are they going to throw? They're completely out of the game before it even starts. I think Tom Brady is going to throw for over 5 touchdowns.
You know what's crazy? I don't even know what they're going to do this week. Maybe they might run on him because they can't.
Garrett Blount might come out of nowhere.
Yes, maybe he's going to have over 100 yards.
You don't.
That's Belichick in a nutshell.
You're right. That is Belichick.
You're right. So
This team is going to win by 20-plus points this weekend.
They can only beat
Foxborough.
themselves.
Dugan, like you said for the national championship game, I know college is a little different, but in the big games,
take
the coach.
Take the coach.
Urban Meyer.
And I take Belichick over Pagano. Pagano, I'm a fan of you.
I like Pagano.
Cancer survivor, Italiano, you're a good guy. You're going
You know
down
what
this
is,
week.
Bug?
Sorry.
How they handle themselves, celebrated in Mile High. I didn't like this team is not focused to win an AFC championship.
It's like they won a Super Bowl. They beat Denver.
It's like, oh, we took the next step. Now you got New England.
Did you guys see that?
It's not like you're focusing about New England here.
Did you see that YouTube video with the Colts player doing the Ric Flair?
Yes.
No,
Very good.
Piss stealing, jet flying.
Oh my
I did not see that. No.
Too tough. Whoa! Awesome, man. That team's got a lot of mojo, though. They play for each other. I'll give them that.
That they do.
But they're going to run into a team on a mission.
Do you think there's
Pat
any
Seahawks
chance?
Super Bowl.
Do you think there's any chance?
Well, we'll see if we're right.
No,
Because you know what? We got the college football series one. We all picked Florida State and Alabama here, but you know, Urban Meyer was our second coming over here.
You're a valiant, you're a great guest.
I know.
We all saw this one coming. Urbania.
You're calling it since week 4.
I mean, Dugan, me and you been lobbying since October. Since October, Ohio State let them in. Let them in. They beat Michigan State. Let them in. Wisconsin, they let them in. We had TCU hanging over heads. They got the 4 seed, and they beat Alabama and Oregon with a third-string quarterback. This stuff does not happen. This is why college football is so great. And
really
the display they put on Monday was a team effort. They shut down.
Say that Ohio State didn't deserve to be in. This is the only team ever to beat the top 3 Heisman Trophy finalists.
Yeah. Wow. Is he now, by winning this national championship, and he's from Ohio, is he like Ed O'Neill in Little Giants? You know what I mean? Is he idolized? Is he going to have his face on an oil rig?
This guy's the best coach in college football. If you think anything less of this guy, you're completely wrong.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
He's the best
He's
coach.
the best coach.
There's a guy over there in Tuscaloosa that might disagree, but
sorry.
Urban Meyer's the best.
I'm sorry. Urban Meyer's the best.
Saban is a very good coach.
Urban Meyer brought his
It's like this.
Andrew.
1A, 1B. 1A, 1B.
Quarterback. He didn't start a game all season. He started 3 games all season.
That's coaching,
3
yes.
games.
But Vin, you watch the guy's natural talent?
A kid off the street.
Vin, did you watch his natural talent? He's 6'5".
He
runs a 440.
I understand
He's
that.
a monster. He was so good.
He
was so good that they're talking about him entering the NFL draft. So maybe a third-string quarterback wasn't a prototypical third-string quarterback. Exactly. He's not your David Carr in the NFL. He's not your Bruce Gradkowski in the NFL.
No.
He's not. He's got a future maybe to him. So
This lady goes to the draft second, third round. Let's talk about that. If Cardell Jones declares I'm going to the draft, where would you take him as an NFL team? Where would you take him?
I wouldn't take him.
I would take him 5th, 6th round.
I would take him 6th
He'll
round. I
definitely
wouldn't
get
take
drafted.
no
chance.
He's got no body of work to look at.
Don't enter the draft. Stay in school. Stay in school.
Stay in school.
Stay in school.
The only thing is, he might now take a back seat to Braxton Miller.
Yeah, but you know what? Urban Meyer,
We'll run
3rd
a
and 1,
system.
4th and 1. He's coming in the game like he used
did
Chris
at
Slick
Florida.
and Tebow.
Exactly.
He
Is he
will
going to be okay
exactly.
with that role? I don't
He's
think
not
so.
ready for the pros.
But he's ready to start at Ohio State. He's not going to take a back seat in the starting position, Nelly. He just won the national championship. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't.
It's not going to happen.
I personally, you can't bench him. I'm
Braxton
sorry.
Miller was a
I said the
Heisman.
same thing. You can't bench him.
can't
Dude,
bench
the
him.
thing that we were both spot on last week was the running game of Ohio
Ezekiel?
State.
I'm sorry.
How do we know?
I'm sorry. I predicted him for 180 yards. Yeah, he went well over 200.
Yeah, you
I'm
were
sorry.
Let the MVP talk over.
Yeah,
sorry.
he was.
Dugan?
Dugan,
I
you
told
were
you,
spot on.
Urban Meyer
He's phenomenal.
will devise
Hand
a
the
plan
ball
for
to
Ezekiel
Ezekiel.
Elliott.
Yeah.
He's
and that was it.
phenomenal.
And is that what he
And
did?
All
the
second
defense
half, that's all he
held
did.
Mariota to 20 points.
Guys, let's call it out as when
was
Oregon came
disgusting.
out, that opening drive and went right down the field.
Yeah.
You
I thought the
all
game
said
was
to yourselves,
over.
you were like, this offense is just not
can't
going to
be
be stopped
stopped.
this year. That's it. This is their
Can't be
year.
stopped.
Finally, Oregon did it, and then
Once Urban made
Meyer-
those adjustments,
yeah, yep.
that was it.
That was
See,
it. I
that's-
agree.
As a Buck fan and looking at Mariota and watching him on tape, the closer he gets to the red zone, the worse he gets.
Yes.
Nelly, you got scared that game. You're a little worried.
Ohio
No, I
State.
wasn't. Because
You
I
still
knew.
want Mariota?
No, I don't. I remember wanting Winston in September.
Right, you have been.
But
yeah.
still, he took a bad hit on the sidelines from Bosa, and he got hurt. Winston would have
Yeah.
never fell down on that hit.
Nelly, how long
He's
does it
much
take for
bigger.
Jameis
Winston's
Winston
much
to end
bigger.
up in jail over there, man?
Yo, no,
You know?
see, you can say that about a lot of people, like Denzel and that. It doesn't happen sometimes. You got to give people. Look
I
at
don't think-
I agree.
Tyrann
The right
Matthew.
mix-
Matthew's played great for Arizona.
Yes,
He got
the
20
honey badger.
trouble. Come
The
on.
honey badger,
He did, yes.
Have a little faith in people. Warren Sapp had a drug problem when he went to the NFL.
There you go. He turned into a great guy.
Come on.
You're right, Nelly. You're
You
right.
know what? You can say all you want.
It's all about your
You got
mentoring.
Good mentors.
And how you look at life.
That's what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
But you know what? I wasn't impressed with Mariota.
Yeah.
fluttering throws here
Definitely
and there.
not.
I was
Definitely
yeah,
not.
but
Not at all.
it's a system. If you can't take a snap on the center on the inch, like Cordell Jones on the 1 ran forward, if you can't do that because you're too fragile, you got. What do you think's gonna happen in the NFL? You're bigger, faster, stronger. Look at Johnny Manziel. Looks like he shouldn't be in the league.
Nah.
The reason why Mariota
and Johnny Manziel has legs, and that's what worries about me. At least Winston can take a hit.
Yeah.
Even Winston's fumble play, everyone makes fun. You forget he pirouetted out of that.
Yeah.
And it's like about. I mean, that's stuff you got to look for.
He's a classic.
The reason why Mariota is so good
got put up last
because his run game has been there.
Right.
Okay. They run for. If you look at Oregon, a lot of people don't know this. They run a lot.
Right.
All right. And they got the quick throws. That's all he is. He's quick throws, and he can scramble out of the pocket. That's all he is.
Do you see?
When you take away this run game, you can see that he couldn't progress the team.
So he'll be easy to game
plan. Granted, a lot of people drop the ball.
Exactly. He's very easy to game plan against.
Yeah, that's basically what you're saying.
So
I really do.
Is it a consensus now that Ohio State is number 1 into next season? Like you got to think of
they got the number 1
and
they got the number 1 running back of the nation coming in.
Yeah.
The number 1 he signed Monday night.
Number 1 recruit.
Number 1 recruit signed Monday night.
Well, he's going to take a back seat to Ezekiel. So.
They're only going to get better.
They're
only going to get better.
Swap out Elliott with the number 1 recruit in the nation.
You could tell after the game, watching Urban Meyer celebrate with his players, they're a family.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like, I can't tell you how many nights I'm sure an Ohio State player has called Urban Meyer's house and his wife answers the phone and has advice for this young man. They're a tight-knit group, and that just helps in
like
sports.
the Spurs with Popovich.
Exactly. You never want any friction. The close, tight-knit groups are the ones that make it. You're
exactly right.
This is a brotherhood, like anything else.
Seahawks defense, same thing.
Right, exactly. They are just Pete Carroll. That's because of Pete Carroll. He instituted that winning mentality, that togetherness into that team. So
but Monk, look when Urban Meyer was in Florida and the culture he built there. It hasn't been the same since.
Not at all.
It's completely gone.
No
Ohio State, he goes there. He had a little had to take a break. The defensive coordinator took over, and look what he's built. He has 3 quarterbacks that are phenomenal. He has a beautiful system. He knows what he's doing.
It's just
nice
to see.
He has a great defense.
It's
He's
nice
a
to see a
motivator.
normal. Yeah, it's just nice to see a normal, influential American man. Just nothing wrong coming out. You could just see that he's just a normal guy that knows the hell out of football.
Ohio State
coaches kids up.
He has the passion for it, though.
How you make others feel about themselves says a lot about you. So he's a great motivator. They want to play for him.
He's a great coach.
Yeah.
I think he'd be great in the pros because he's a good motivator. Pete Carroll could do this with Seattle. Urban Meyer could do this in the NFL.
100%.
I'm sorry. Nick Saban didn't work out for him, but I can see Urban Meyer making it good in the pros.
100%.
You know what? If that doesn't fit him, because his family about his
work ethic, I think he's
just
ever
stay in
been
Ohio State, Urban. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
He's the happiest he's ever been in his life.
Your hometown, your dream job, stay there.
Exactly.
Absolutely stay there.
He'll be back next year.
Yeah.
That Big Ten's not that hard.
No,
besides
not at all.
State.
Absolutely
no way.
He'll be there. It's going to be like Florida State this year. They didn't have a lot of hard games, and they were still top 4.
Right.
They'll be there again.
Exactly
It's
right,
true.
Duke.
It's true.
So, all right. Well, that's our actually, before we go, real quick, we have a Jet fan in the house, and obviously Rex Ryan is gone. What do you guys think about Todd Bowles? Do you think he's going to be good for you guys? Vin?
Me personally, no. I don't like the hiring at all. I'll be honest with you.
Todd, you don't like Todd Super Bowls?
We're going defensive again. We went defensive with Rex Ryan. He was a D coordinator, becoming head coach. His first job, it didn't work out. I personally like.
But isn't that your strength? Don't you want to improve on your strength?
We need an offensive coach.
Yeah.
We need an offensive coach.
Right. I feel like if you get a good offensive mind, then
we need an offensive coach, or at least
you go for Trestman.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe you just get a great offensive coordinator.
We need a stout offensive coordinator.
You do, Vin.
We can't have a subpar offensive coordinator.
I think you need a lot more.
You got old running back.
You need a lot more than that. What are you, crazy?
I think they're stuck for Geno in another year. It's tough. What do you
how does Rex Ryan work in Buffalo? I'll tell you, after listening to
same great defense, but no offense again. Here we go. Same story.
Same story.
Same song and dance for you, Rex.
Exact same thing. He's already guaranteeing playoffs today.
Yeah.
He guaranteed Super Bowls with us. We didn't see any. We've seen playoffs.
He's just a colorful
You know what?
personality.
You want to talk about that? Let's talk about the firing with John Fox, man.
Yeah.
I was like, you can't take the next level, but what was really that about?
Is Denver
he will be the 49ers' next head coach?
Is Denver an attractive job anymore? With Peyton, questions with Peyton?
But they're saying Jack Del Rio's going to take it. Jack Del Rio can't win
Jack Del Rio just signed
Oakland.
Jack Del Rio just went to Oakland today.
Thank you. But who's in the running for Denver? Who do you sign to bring him over the top?
there's
What do you sign?
really no coach you really can
A lot
sign.
of questions.
Is it the offensive coordinator?
Take a step or two back now.
Yeah.
All I know is Pat Seahawks Super Bowl, baby.
We'll see what happens.
Maybe
We'll be
they'll
next week to talk about it.
Only time will tell for the coach and roulette. You know who gets who. I can't wait to see who the Giants get as defensive coordinator. But all right, well that's our show for this evening.
Thank you again.
I want to thank Anthony so much for coming on.
Thanks, Ed.
It was
you the man.
Honestly,
No problem,
guys.
Thanks for having me.
And
Anthony, I would like to give you time so our listeners can find you to listen to your blogs and your ESPN one last second.
Yeah, sure.
Check you guys out.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, the same name, Anthony MSG. And I'm on ESPN New York every Saturday morning, usually 10 a.m. And I'm on weeknights at 9 p.m. The Knicks don't play on the knicksblog.com. Also, the Knicks Blog podcast is once a week on the knicksblog.com. It varies what day every week it is. But so just go to the knicksblog.com or follow me on my social networks, both Anthony MSG on Instagram and Twitter.
Awesome.
Thank you, Anthony. Honor to have you. You're fantastic. Legit voice of the Knicks. Fantastic. I love your work.
Thank you so much, guys.
True
you
fan.
guys do a great job as well.
All right. That's our show, sponsored by Unique and Fair Catering as well. So, dude, put us away.
all right, guys. Again, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this weekend we got a couple really good games, and come back next week. And next week we will have like a Super Bowl show.
Oh,
I can't believe it's here.
We have 2 weeks of Super Bowl show actually.
Yeah,
We're getting
2
a bye, so we can't
Pro
wait.
Bowl, not a bye, it's a Pro Bowl.
The Pro Bowl. I'm sorry. And let's go Knicks in London too.
Knicks win a game
tomorrow in London
for Anthony and all of us.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
See you guys later.
In my eyes, what do you see? The cult of personality.